Hi, everyone, and welcome to Talks at Google. My name is Boon Lai, and I lead marketing for our fantastic Google Workspace business. I'm also a pillar lead for both our Asian and marketing and our Google Pride ERG. Today, I'm thrilled to host an amazing speaker who is not only an accomplished chef, a TV personality, and now he's also a best-selling author, Ronnie Woo. Now, if you've seen Ronnie in cooking shows or on his social media channels, you will be familiar with his signature cooking, his charisma, and his infectious sense of humor. Ronnie's debut cookbook, Did You Eat Yet?, was published just a few weeks ago, and it's already a bestseller. Ronnie, it's great to see you again, and welcome to Talks at Google.
Hey, Boone. Thank you so much for having me. And that intro was amazing. I need to have you be my hype man every single time.
How are you doing today? And more importantly, did you eat yet?
I had a banana shake. I actually just shot this quick little video. But I actually just had some boba and a banana shake. So that was what I ate today. It's been kind of a crazy day, but it's been good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Now, before we get started, it's just a reminder to our audience that we'll be opening up for Q&A a little bit later on. So be sure to add your questions to the live chat. Now, Ronnie, I see you're in such a great place, and I'm really excited to learn more about your journey to becoming a chef and a writer, to diving deeper into your identity of being unapologetically all-American, Asian, and gay. And I'd love to have some fun with your books. So, we've seen you everywhere, all over media, on Good Morning America, on the Rachel Ray Show, on the Drew Barrymore Show, in magazines and book signings all over the country. How are you feeling right now with the amazing success of your first cookbook?
I think it's a combination of exhausted, because I definitely have been pushing for the last few months, and excited just because the book is finally in the world, and I'm excited for just everyone to see it. It's been so much work and such a long time in the making, but I think excited and tired, but a good tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see all the love that you're getting on social and how you're also inspiring others, and being proud of who you are and being a master of their own kitchen. Now, you've had an amazing career so far, first as a successful model, therapist, chef, and now writer. What inspired you to become a chef and now write a book?
I mean, that's a really good question. I don't think that it was necessarily one thing or one moment that inspired me. I think it was a series of moments that led up to where I am today, which is sort of how I see life. Life is sort of just this series of events that lead you to where you are presently, which sounds really obvious. But if you look back at it, we're always trying to think ahead of what we want to do and where we want to be, like where we want to go and what we want to become. And I think there's a little bit of planning and a little bit of spontaneity in it as well. So as far as my career goes to becoming a chef and then now an author, I think it probably started when I was born into a family that loved food. My entire family are just foodies. Like, they plan their vacations around food. Every single conversation involves food if it's not centered around food. And then I think that when I say there's no moments, there might have been one moment that might have sparked it, but it was actually my first date with my husband. He flew in, we were dating long distance, and he flew in from San Francisco. I lived in Los Angeles, and we both live in Los Angeles now, but basically I decided to make dinner for him, and I've never done that for anybody. And the funny thing and the ironic thing is that meal was so disgusting. We call it ass. People are always like, what's the dish that you made your husband that really brought him? And I'm like, it's something called ass. And I'm like, it's not what you think it is. It's an acronym for atrociously stinky salmon, because I made this salmon dish that for some reason just turned out really, really bad. I think luckily I haven't made any horrible dishes to chase them away, but it was a funny moment that we had, because once we both tasted it, we both just turned to each other and just spit it out, because we're like, this is the most disgusting thing ever. And we just laughed and laughed and laughed the night away, and 15 years later, here we are. But
whatever you did worked, right? So
whatever I did worked. And 15 years later, here I am as a chef and an author. So what I suggest is always just get in the kitchen and cook something gross. And that's the answer.
And I mean, how did you get your training as a chef? Like, can any of us just do it? I mean, you just gave such a great example. And I'd love to hear, in your opinion, what makes a really good chef?
Well, so the funny thing is, obviously, I didn't start as a chef. I started as a model, and then I went ahead and got my undergrad in psychology, and then I got 2 master's degree in MFT, which is marriage and family therapy, and then an MBA, which is master's in business administration. And I think after a couple years, I mean, not a couple, after a couple degrees and many years of education and being in a classroom, I think going back to culinary school wasn't exactly top of mind because I just like, I just can't do any more instruction. And so I actually locked myself in the kitchen for like 6 months and just taught myself. I guess my mindset was a little bit either I can do it, either I have the chops, built in already, or I couldn't do it. And luckily I can. But I do believe anyone can do it. I mean, I think some people are wired differently because I do believe being a chef is a creative process, but at the same time, it's anyone can be creative in the kitchen. And I think the beauty of food is that it's so subjective. Like one thing that might be delicious to one person might not be delicious to another person. And that's what makes the world go round and round. And so to answer your question, yes, I do think anyone can do it. I take my job seriously, but at the same time, I don't take cooking so seriously because I'm not saving lives. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a fireman. I'm not someone in the front line. So I really think of being a chef as something that I'm very lucky to be because it's something that's fun and creative, and I can make mistakes and I can do things like that. And so, yes, I do think everyone can do it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think it's the sense of commitment and discipline, right? That you've clearly done that. And then also the idea of being able to being open to experimentation and, kind of enjoying and learning along the way.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it, Boone.
Yeah. And if we take a step back, I'd love to hear more about your journey, maybe first as a model. And I'm kind of curious what your parents thought or said to you when you told them that you wanted to become a model.
Totally. I mean, so when the very first time I modeled is I think I was 15. I think I was 15 years old, and I signed with a local agency in Seattle. And I always tell people this. It's funny because, and this kind of ties into API month. But it was funny because back then when I started nowadays modeling, you can be an IG model, you can be an agency model. There's so many different shapes and sizes of models. But back then it was very much like you had to fit a certain size, you had to be a certain height, you had to exactly pretty much be like an actual Ken doll, but just different colors and of skin. And the funny thing is every agency had one Asian model. So if they already had one, you're kind of out of luck. You're just like, nope, like we already have someone who looks like you. And I'm like, but we look different. But that was just the way of the world. And so I was lucky enough to sign with the local agency, and I moved to a bigger local agency. And then I signed with Wilhelmina in LA. But I think when I was doing it locally, my parents were very much like, oh, he's just doing this as a side job. It's fun for him. It's extra money. And it was decent money. I'm not going to lie. I remember going to high school wasn't a great time for me, but I remember feeling super cool because I was like, I just made $1,000 for a picture. And I thought it was so cool. But I think when it really sort of hit my parents that I actually wanted to try it like real time was when I was like, I'm going to move to LA after a year of undergrad at University of Washington. I was in a fraternity for a year and I was just like, I really want to try my hand at modeling. And so I moved to LA and, being from an Asian family, it's like you're either a doctor or a lawyer, like something very tangible. And my dad, the funny thing about my dad is that he is such a hard worker. He comes for nothing. And you would think that someone like that would just be like, no, you have to be a doctor. You have to be a lawyer, something really obvious because he's a doctor. And the funny thing about my dad is that he's always been so supportive of my dreams. No matter what my wild and crazy dream is, he's very supportive. And I think his mindset is like, he wants me to experience the entire pursuit of the dream in its entirety so that I don't feel like I regret something. And so he'd always do everything he could to help me out, whether it was, his wisdom, his support, whatever it was, he just did it. My mom, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. So she's kind of what you would assume a stereotypical Asian mom is. She can't compartmentalize. She has a hard time thinking outside the box. So I think when she heard that I wanted to be a model, it was like, she immediately metaphorically just fainted and fell on the floor. And I think this was sort of the start of my parents maybe realizing that I'm a little bit of a wild card. Like I won't take the conventional route. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. And so, for me, it was I just always had my head in the clouds. Even as a young kid, I would sit in my room and just think about doing bigger things. And I didn't necessarily know what that was, but I know that moment when I was 15, that currently that like in that moment it was to try modeling, because I just always thought it was kind of cool. And I mean, it's not, it's no offense, I don't want to get like anyone to come at me, but modeling's not exactly the hardest job, but it was fun and I wanted to do it. And I just always, ever since I was young, I've always lived by the mantra of just, there's no better time to try something than today. There's no better time to start something than today. And that's how I've always lived my life.
Yeah, I mean, I love that philosophy. It sounds like, you have the yin and yang from your parents, but also like once you believe in something, you kind of hone in and you're committed to doing it. And I love the fact that you have a very unique educational background. Tell us a bit more about this and how this influenced you as a chef.
Absolutely. So, I think if I had to sum it up, I think that my modeling background gave me thick skin, because it's funny, you're hired to look a certain way, and then you're kind of picked apart for it as well in the industry. At least back then, I think nowadays people are a little bit more hesitant to, tear people apart, which is amazing and great. And I love that. But back then it was like, I remember being dropped from a job because the booker said that I looked, or the brand that I already went into a fitting for said that I looked full. I'm like, I'm always full, I'm always eating. But I remember that time, that very specific time in my life, because I had never been skinnier in my life. And I think that sort of gave me a thick skin, because you just get picked apart. And it was, in a way, it prepared me for the rest of the world, because the world does kind of pick you apart. It kind of chews you up and spits you out. And you have to be able to go with the punches and to be able to withstand whatever the world throws at you, because, the world can be kind of unkind sometimes. And then obviously then I think I went the opposite route, because I was like, God, I had so much like negativity and criticism thrown at me. I went to the therapy realm. Got my undergrad at UCLA, and then I got my MFT, my marriage and family therapy. I think I always had this knack for really wanting to help people and help people's relationships. And ultimately, I realized that I was not a great therapist, just because I think my personality is a little bit bigger. I think that I tend to feel very attached very easily to people. So as a therapist, you have to be able to be emotionally attached, but at the same time, be able to let it go at the end of the day. And so for me, and it's hard work, and I respect it to the utmost. We need more therapists, by the way. But ultimately, I think that the therapeutic setting but really helped me understand the inner workings of the human mind a little bit more, which again is very helpful just in relationships in general and helping other people. So, fast forward to becoming a chef, it was very much like connecting with people through my food. But through my food, I think people would also find a lot of comfort in chatting with me and telling me stuff and having conversations with me. And that was something that I really loved, probably the most, even more so than someone enjoying my food, was connecting with people that I cook for and talking to them and learning more about them. People always like, what is your people who don't necessarily know my background always ask me what my background is, because they said you ask a lot of questions. And obviously this interview, you're asking me questions, but I actually prefer it the other way around. Like, I love learning about other people, because the funny thing is, I think lots of times we're so involved with our own worlds that we forget that everyone else has their own universes. And I love learning about other people's universes. That's sort of what's fun about this. And so food is a way to open up that bridge to learn about other people, even though maybe you're the one cooking. And I love that aspect about food. And I think that's where my background has brought me forward to this day.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. It's such a great philosophy. I think also that comes through in your business as well, right? So you're a private chef. You have a private chef company called The Delicious Cook, and you work with clients like Gwyneth Paltrow, Mindy Kaling, Jessica Alba, just to name a few. What's that experience like working with these celebrities? You talked around like how you engage and talk with people, and then also I'd love to hear like from that experience, what are some of your like signature dishes, and how is it kind of like engaged? How is that part of that experience when you kind of cater to them?
Totally. I think the beauty of being a private chef is that you get to make something different every single time. I have some go-to dishes like my broiled hanger steak and my flourless chocolate cake. I would say those are probably my signature dishes. But when I say signature, just maybe ones that I've made a few more times than the others, because every single event's a little bit different. It's always tailored to whatever that person likes, or tailored to the experience that they want to have, or maybe a memory that they have, and we're trying to reconjure that or conjure up an old memory. But as far as like cooking in like with Hollywood clients, it's funny because I think I remember being really nervous for my very first Hollywood client, which was an actor named Holly Robinson Peete. I remember her. I remember watching on this show, and I really don't remember, but it was I watched growing up, and she was like a mainstay on my television all the time. So I remember being really, really nervous to cook for her, and just I brought my husband with me because he's kind of like my safety blanket. No, he's not, but he's really helpful and sort of like talking me down if I'm on the ledge or something. And so that was the only time I was really nervous. But I think ultimately, the more events I did with in the Hollywood realm, and the more events I did just with people, you start to learn that everyone, and this sounds so silly, but they, like Us Weekly has they're just like us kind of, page. But the thing is, everyone's just like everyone else. Like we all eat. We're all mortal, and I always just joke we're all just a bag of bones and blood and guts. But that was my experience with that is my experience with being like cooking for Hollywood clients. It's just that they're just like everyone else, and it's fun to learn. It's fun to meet these people, but at the same time, my passion is really cooking for them and learning about them.
Yeah, I love that. Now, who are you most excited to cook for, and who would you like to cook for next?
So I would say, I think, like I said earlier, I think I was most excited to cook for Holly Robinson Peete. And then I think everyone after that it's cool, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily excited. Every single event, I always say like to my staff, I'm always like, okay, you need to treat every single event like it's your last event or it's your first event, whichever one gets you going, but we need to make this perfect. And that's just how I see every event now. I don't necessarily get excited for any of my like to meet any of the specific clients. I'm excited for the events. And I'm a little bit more picky and choosy which ones I do. So I would say Holly Robinson Peete, probably, just simply because she was my first. And then you never forget your first, right? And then I think if I had to choose someone that I would really want to cook for, it's probably a toss up between like Oprah, Jennifer Lopez, or Britney Spears, in case no one, I don't think there's another Britney that's, as famous as she's, but, any one of those. I would probably, those are the three I would get excited for. One time I did the Today Show, and Jennifer Lopez was on the same show as me. She walked by me, and she's just like so beautiful in real life. And there's just like a presence to her that, she has this it factor. You kind of like feel her presence. That sounds kind of weird and like almost like gross, but like she just has like an aura about her. And so if I had to choose between the three, it's a toss up, but I've met Jennifer Lopez, so maybe Oprah or Britney.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of them sounds amazing, and it sounds like what you're saying is you're very focused around catering that experience for them, right? And really understanding their stories and the connections that you want to make as part of the food, the culinary experience. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And let me know when that happens. I'd love to hear that story afterwards.
I will.
Now, diving a little bit into the book, why is your book called "Did You Eat Yet?"
I mean, the answer to that question is pretty simple. It's something that my mom and my grandmother would say to me. They would say to me in Chinese, which is "nei sik fan mei," which directly translates to "Have you eaten dinner yet?" And that's the only reason why I named it that. It's a nod to my mom and my grandmother, and it's a term of endearment as well. And the funny thing is, the more I talk to people, and the more people see that title, it's not just the Asian community, it's almost every community, and it's not even moms or dads even, it's just people. If you want to take care of someone, that's sort of just the way that you can show how much you care about somebody, because preparing a meal for somebody is so special, and it's a treat. So when my friends come over, everyone walks in the door, my husband walks through the door, it's always just like, "Did you eat yet?" Well, with my husband, I know if he's eaten or not yet because we're texting throughout the day. But with friends, and just anyone who comes into the door, I just always want to make sure that they don't feel hungry when they're in my house. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I love that food, and it's so universal to supporting each other and supporting your family and friends. And in your book, you mentioned that food is your love language, and you mentioned a little bit about like your husband. And can you talk about how that translates to your relationship with your husband, Doug?
Yeah, totally. So the way that food translates to my relation with my husband is, again, that's my love language, and in a general sense, acts of service is my love language. I'm not really we're not really a gift giving couple. Like, we don't really buy each other stuff. He's also an act of service, but in different ways. And um, for me, the biggest way is to take care of him. I find a lot of purpose, a lot of happiness in taking care of him because I love him. And same thing goes for my friends and my family. I find a lot of purpose in taking care of them. And for me, my strength is food and making good food. And so for me to be able to do that gives me a sense of belonging and a sense of, like I said, purpose. And I always say that as long as you keep, this only applies to your spouse, but as long as you keep them fed and sexed, then I think you'll be golden. Aside from some emotional stimulation and learning about their day every once in a while, keep them sexed and fed, and you're good. But that just pertains to my husband, not to everyone.
No, but I do love how like your personality and your humor comes through in all the photos and the names of the different chapters in the book. I'd love to hear more about your cooking style, like what inspired you and what are some of your philosophy.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that inspires me in my cooking is I like to make what I personally like to eat. And I think that's generally what people like to do. I think that's generally how people cook in general, is they cook what they like to eat. But a lot of my recipes are based off of what I just love eating. And I love Asian food. I think if I had to choose one cuisine to eat for the rest of my life, it'd probably be Asian food. But again, the thought of eating one cuisine for the rest of my life sounds daunting. So I don't want to put that in the universe because I love all types of food. But I think most of my inspiration comes from the food my mom made, but also the food that we ate traveling. So I think it's a combination of, like I always say when I describe my book, my American upbringing, my Asian heritage, and my travels around the world. That's how I always say it. It's very sterile, a very sterile answer, but it's the truth. It's inspired by everything. And I would say my philosophy in the kitchen is just to have fun and to not take it too seriously. And just not to be scared, because people are always like, well, what can I make? I don't really cook. What can I make? What if it messes up or like it doesn't turn out? And I'm like, barring that food, like, every ingredient that you buy, you're counting, like you're on a very strict budget, which I think is important to put in consideration. You definitely don't want to waste money on ingredients and then mess it up and not be able to eat it. Barring that is the case, I think that if you mess it up, you can always just try again, throw it away, order takeout, whatever it is. And so my philosophy would ultimately be just have fun and don't worry about rules. When it comes to my recipes and food, it's really like, does it taste good? Is the end result what you want it to be? If that's what it is, if the end result is delicious and it makes you happy, then you've succeeded.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a really nice way of looking at it, because it takes away all the pressure and just you can have fun and make sure that you're kind of having a good time. I love the intersectionality of being Asian, American, and also being loud and proud, being gay. When and how did you build that confidence and that, sense of identity? Because it's kind of hard in our community.
Yeah, it is 100% hard in our community. I mean, first and foremost, I think we have to really bring it back to our mental health, because that's the priority here, right? And I think we grew up in a community that really doesn't necessarily put a lot of emphasis on being vulnerable and self-awareness and taking care of your mental health. Because I think sometimes in the Asian community, being aware of your mental health or therapy, even as a tangible thing, is a sign of weakness. And to me, that's the exact opposite. I think being self-aware and going to therapy, taking care of your mental health, is a sign of strength, because it takes a lot of strength to really own up and take responsibility for your struggles. So as an Asian community, it's like there's so many expectations to be a certain way. And then in the gay community, there's so many expectations to be a certain way too. I think there's a lot more acceptance, but it's always been a struggle. My intersectionality of being gay and Asian, because sometimes they don't really go together. And it's an ongoing process for me in the sense that I've learned that they don't necessarily have to fit into each other. They can be side by side and they don't necessarily define me, because ultimately, if I can take myself out of the expectations of both communities, because I'll be totally honest, like there have been moments in my life and even now where I don't necessarily feel like I fit into one or the other. Because there were times where I felt like, oh, the gay community doesn't love me. And then there's times where I feel like the Asian community doesn't love me. It's like, how do we find a sense of belonging? And I think it's kind of a two-part process. You have to really build your own definition of what it means to be a gay Asian American. I think, we don't get a whole lot of representation in media. I think, society tends to pit us against one another, just simply because the opportunities are so low. So everyone feels like a sense of like competition, and that's like a fallacy. We're not supposed to be competing against each other. We're supposed to be like supporting each other, because I think once you realize that you have a shared experience and that you can really find strength in numbers, and that's where you build. And then the second part which leads me to the second part, which is building a support system of people who understand you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be other gay Asian Americans, but just people who understand the experience of having intersecting identities, because it's really difficult. It's hard enough to be, it's hard enough to be a human being in general. Then you throw in being gay, it's difficult. You throw in being Asian, or minority, always trying to, combat racism and things like that. So it piles on, but it's the cards that we're dealt. And once we learn and accept that it's an everyday struggle and it's an everyday battle, I think you come to a better peace with it, that it's a learning process ultimately. And I mean, I'm by no means at a place where it's like I'm good, but I also don't believe that I'll ever get to a place where I just feel 100% confident and 100% amazing. You know what I mean? Because you have good days and you have bad days. And ultimately, the question I ask myself at the end of the day is, am I a good person? Am I trying my best? And I think ultimately, whether you're gay, whether you're Asian, whether you're everything, whether you're all of the above, I think that's really the bottom line. And the biggest question is, are you a good person and are you trying your best?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that it's really important to accept who you are and have that sense of self. And then, but to your point, also make sure you surround yourself with people, right? Your chosen family, and make sure that you get support from your community in that sense as well. And so from that perspective, how would you define success?
That's a good question. I think that the world defines success in one way. I think we see money, we see cars, we see houses, we see status, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting that. But I think when that becomes the only thing that you want and you're myopic about it, that's when it becomes, I think, a problem. Because, what I've learned in my career is that every time you have you tell yourself, oh, I just need to get to this place in my career. I just need to get the next TV show. I just need to get a cookbook and I'll just be happy. And that is such a fallacy, because it's not true. There's always going to be something else. There's always going to be another mountain to climb. And I think for me, and I'm constantly working on this, and I think anyone who tells you that they've got it all figured out is lying to you, because it's impossible to have it entirely figured out. But for me, it's about accepting that the process might actually be more enjoyable than the actual end result, because there really isn't an end result until you die. I mean, that's kind of the end, because there's always going to be something new. And so to define personal success, I always think of it as a sum of parts. We are more than just our careers. We're more than just our relationships. We are more than just, whatever parts of your life, we're more than each of those parts. And you have to look at it as a whole, because I think success is defined by your happiness, but happiness is also like, it's a very like flexible emotion. Like some days you're happier than others, and some days you're not. And I think, a lot of people think that success is, what have you accomplished? How much money do you have? What status do you hold? What job do you have? Did you get that promotion? Did you get that book deal? Things like that. And I think people forget to remind themselves that success can also be um, measured by your failures, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that, are you able to get back up? Are you able to withstand rejection and setbacks and obstacles? Like, are you persevering? And I think there's a lot of success in perseverance, and people forget to remind themselves of that. So I think it's about viewing success as a two-sided coin, because both, if you look at it only by the things you accomplish, then you're never really going to be happy and successful. But if you look at it at everything you've overcome and your obstacles and the things that you have worked through and your self growth, I think that's success in and of itself. So I think it's important for people to see that success can be achieved. Personal success can be achieved at every little step of the way, and to celebrate each of these successes throughout their life, throughout their career. Because if you don't, and you're not grateful for these milestones that you achieve, whether they're big or small, you'll never feel successful, and that will translate into unhappiness. Which I think ultimately we're all just trying to be happy human beings, right? Because happy people create other happy people. I think a lot of the people that put negativity in the world are people who are negative and like who are unhappy and don't know how to handle their own crap.
I mean, I love so many great life lessons in there. I mean, I think one takeaway, as you mentioned, is this is so much of a journey, and learning when you kind of fall down, but taking that and kind of building to the next thing, and then also celebrating when you get success along the way. And I would love to kind of understand, how do you see the role of food playing out in kind of your journey, and how you kind of build out personal relationships, given your background, your very unique background, and if you have any advice for our listeners out there.
Totally. I think, to start off with the advice, I would say just have as many meals as you possibly can. And I think that leads me to answer your question as a whole, is that food is such a beautiful medium. Like, it is such a bridge to communication. It is such it really does bring people together. You hear food personalities say that all the time. You're like, food brings people together, but they don't really know what it means,
Yeah.
because everyone's physically around the table. But food does more than just bring people together. Food also opens up hearts and opens up minds, and you have some of the best conversations around food and around the kitchen table, around snacks, around nosh. I mean, like, it just really kind of makes you feel comfortable. And so I would say that have as many meals as you can with people, because being around people is ultimately, a lot of studies have shown that relationships and friendships and really strong relationships, not necessarily quantity, but quality of relationships, is really what drives longevity in people's lives, and happiness drives longevity as well. And so I would just say have as many meals as you can with people, because you're going to have amazing conversation. You're going to have good food, good experiences. And ultimately that's sort of, I think that's maybe like a more like therapy view of food. It's a little bit maybe too deep, but actually when you think about it, it's really not. Because I mean, think about all your past experiences with food. Think about just being together and all the conversations you have during food, and you'll see that it's actually it's true, because food is just a great opener for everything. It just opens up everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that with the food being together, your book is also bring people together, right? Like in my family, we've been trying out all the different recipes, and just I would love to go behind the scenes a little bit, so you could tell us about, let's say, 3 of our favorite chapters. One of our favorite one is around sexy sauces.
Amazing. Yeah, I that chapter is great. I mean, that is literally what I think. I think that is sort of those are building blocks of meals I wrote. I think that if you have a sauce, you can really pretty much you'll have like an instant meal if you need something during the week. And so I love that sauce. And I started out with that chapter as the first chapter, mainly because as long as you have 1 or 2 sauces in your fridge, and all the recipes in my book all the sauces last for about like 5 to 7 days. So you just throw it on, like, even if you boil chicken and you have like a good sauce, then you're good to go.
That's a great trick. And my personal favorite is actually the section on breakfast all day. You talk around like boba. Like, I love that matcha watermelon boba one. And then also the char siu bacon and the crispy fried eggs. We've been trying that at home a little bit. So
Amazing.
tell us a little bit about some of these, the section around breakfast.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. You guys been trying that, and I think what I love about breakfast is that when you do breakfast, you generally want things to be quick and easy, but really tasty, and start your day off on the right foot. And I think that's what the entire chapter is. And also, you have sweet stuff, you have savory stuff. Breakfast is just a beautiful meal of the day, and I don't always get to enjoy it. But when I do, I really, really dive in. It's generally on the weekends or on vacation or holiday that I really get to have like delicious breakfast. But what I wanted to do was make a breakfast chapter that was delicious and fun enough for a Saturday, but also easy enough for a weekday. And that's what the beauty of that chapter is. And that's why it's honestly one of my favorite chapters, if not my favorite.
Yeah, you and me both. And so my kids love the section on noodles. I love nudes. And specifically the Mama Woo's wonton. So you could tell that to your mom.
Yeah, I will.
Tell us a bit about the noodle section.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, who doesn't love noodles?
Yeah.
But the fun thing about I believe in my noodle chapter is that I try to really combine some of my favorite things, whether like my favorite noodles and my favorite sauces in unconventional ways. So one of them would be like an almond pesto, but I combine it with udon because udon is one of my favorite noodles, and it's also very underappreciated. I feel like it does not get enough love. I mean, spaghetti and ramen get all the love, but udon just doesn't get as much. But like, they're so yummy and chewy and delicious, and so like the mouth feels so delicious. And so, the chapter just has like a really good variety of noodles. Because I mean, you wouldn't expect wontons to be a noodle in a noodle chapter, but it is. It's like they're like flat noodles. It's like a ravioli. Right. I mean, if you want to turn it into if you want to say it however you want to compare something that a lot of people are familiar with, like it's like a loose, yummy, thin ravioli. So it's all part of the noodle family. That's what I would say. But the great thing about the noodle chapter is just that it's wide ranging.
Yeah. And the wonton noodles is one of my favorites too.
Oh yes, delicious. Oh my god, wonton noodles, love that. Have you ever had the ones where they use shrimp eggs? Have you ever tried the shrimp egg
eggs? No, I haven't tried those.
Okay, they're like shrimp eggs, and they cook them they fry them really quickly in oil, and it's like so delicious. You should try it the next time you're at a wonton place. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last time we spoke, you were in Japan. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how travel and the different cultures influence your cooking.
Totally. I mean, it's funny. I was in Japan. One of the stories in Japan is that in the breakfast chapter, again, back to the breakfast chapter, is one of the things I make in that chapter is a fluffy souffle pancake. And, obviously, ever since I tasted that, they become more popular in the US, and they're just like the thick, really fluffy souffle pancakes made with like whipped egg whites. But when I was doing the recipe, you can do them freeform, but honestly, they're a lot easier just to bake in a ramekin. But it's funny, this last time we went to Japan, we went to Kyoto, which is where I originally found them and discovered them. We went back to the place, and it actually wasn't there. But to bring it back to your question, ultimately, like the world has so many delicious types of cuisines and so many delicious foods that a lot of people might not know about. And I don't go to a country and then, think that I'm taking that back and being like, look what I discovered. Like, that's not how I see it, because like, Lord knows there's a lot of people who think that they go to like Thailand or they go to some country one time and they're experts in that cuisine. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I never claimed to be an expert in the cuisine, but I do like to draw inspiration from aspects of things that I like. And because lots of times, honestly, like every country has their own cuisines, but also because there's different ingredients that they have over there that we don't have. And I like to bring it back and see how I can recreate it. And I mainly recreate it because I want to eat it. But it's also something I love. So something I want to share. And so that's how my travels influence my cooking. But I'm never an expert in that cuisine. I just try to recreate it the best I can so that I can personally enjoy it again without having to travel across the world.
Well, that's great for all of us because we can learn how to do it, and then we can, be part of that memory as well. So, actually, for those of us like following your social and Instagram, we know you have a pretty huge appetite. So, how are you able to eat so much food while staying fit?
That's a good question. I mean, it's funny. I was having like a book team dinner the other day to celebrate a successful book launch, and everyone who knows me knows I eat a lot. And like, we had like a prefix menu, and I was like eating other people's courses because like, oh, you're not gonna eat that, I'm gonna eat it. And we always joke about it because people think I don't actually eat that much food, and everyone at the table is like, but if they know you, they know that you eat a lot of food. And the key is that I don't do that all the time. You know what I mean? I do it occasionally. I go to the gym all the time, and I eat healthy just mainly for my own internal health, not just like my physical outer appearance. And so it's really a balance because I love food so much. I have to indulge on a regular basis, but I don't do it every single day. And that's ultimately the key. I have a couple cheat days. Maybe midweek I'll let myself indulge in something, but it's really just about moderation, and not overdoing it, and going to the gym. Lots of cardio. Lots of cardio. I'm over cardio. I don't know anyone who likes cardio. I mean, do you like cardio, Boo?
No.
It's the worst. I'm like, my legs hurt.
Well, it sounds like you have a good balance and kind of all working out for you. Okay, so I want to close off a little bit with the lightning round. So
Okay.
share which recipe you recommend for the listeners to try out and check out your book to learn a bit more. So,
Okay.
What recipe would you recommend for a cheat meal?
A cheat meal. Definitely the buttermilk fried chicken sandwich for sure.
Ooh, okay. Sounds
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my cheat meal must-haves.
good. What's most fun to cook?
Most fun to cook. I would say the kimchi and Italian sausage fried rice from the breakfast chapter, but mainly because it's like such a smooth running recipe. Like you just have everything chopped up, and everything goes in one after another. And then the next thing you know, in like 10 minutes, you have this delicious recipe. So not only is it fun, it's also really easy.
Yeah, cool. I'll try that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get this a lot. What's the best meal for first dates?
First date. Okay. Barring there's no restrictions, the garlic butter ribeye with the crunchy ginger rice, I think is delicious. I always say like, if you can cook a really good steak, then I'm going to trust that you know how to cook other things, because steak is not hard to cook, but it also requires a little bit of technique and skill. And so if you really want to impress someone and they love steak, and I also think steak is kind of sexy, you know what I mean? Because it's like primal and it's like meat.
What about the best meal for Netflix and chill?
Netflix and chill. Well, you know what Netflix and chill means, right, Boone? I would probably say the California roll sushi bake, because that is something that can be made ahead of time, and it's kind of underappreciated as well because, lots of times when we get like hand rolls at a sushi place, it's the seaweed wrapper, the nori is like soggy. But the great thing about doing a California roll sushi bake is that everything is made inside of like a casserole dish. And so like the rice, and it's all warm, and then you assemble each hand roll while each time you eat it. So every single time you eat it, you have a crunchy seaweed wrapper. So it's not soggy and gross, but you get this juxtaposition of a crunchy seaweed wrapper and warm rice and California roll filling. And it's easy. So I think for a Netflix and chill, it's like fun to get your hands a little bit dirty, to watch a movie, it's easy cleanup, and it's something that can be assembled in advance and then reheated right before eating. So I would definitely suggest that one. But I would suggest that one for any sort of gathering too. So it doesn't need to be just Netflix and chill. Because you want to, Netflix and chill. You just want to eat and then, go chill.
Yeah.
Go chill.
But that's a great advice in terms of getting things prepped so that you can just have more quality time together, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, unless the other person likes to cook, then that is quality time as well, making a meal.
True.
But if you're trying to watch a movie, then you want to get that all ready.
Yeah.
You're actually watching a movie.
I'm curious, what's your mom's favorite dish?
It's funny. It's not necessarily the ones that she makes, or the ones that are inspired by her, because the ones that are inspired by her in the book are not necessarily her exact recipe. But her favorite recipe would probably be this pan-seared scallops with the corn coconut broth. Because it's like she always has critiques for everything, but that's like the one dish that she actually just loves like wholeheartedly. So I would say that's her favorite dish.
Does everyone
else have moms that just are They're just like, I in my book, I say my mom's a walking 3-star Yelp review. Like she's like, it's never really good, but it's never really bad. And she just always has her opinion of how she can make it better, or that she could make this at home. I remember that being one of her things she used to always say is, I can make this at home for you. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, Mom, okay, please make it.
I think it's just her way of showing like her motherly love, right? And also having high expectations, I guess. What about Doug? What's your husband's favorite dish?
I would have to say probably the honey sesame chicken ramen with cucumbers and poached chicken. That's probably his favorite. I mean, he loves ramen, but it's just like a simple dish. He loves like, tahini, because it's made with tahini, which is like sesame paste. And it's really quick. It comes together super quick, and it's also something he could make too. But every time he eats it, he just like loves it.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's actually making me really hungry. So, last question: what would you recommend for a celebration?
A celebration. I would say for a celebration, that's maybe when you would whip out like something sweet. My signature flour chocolate cake. I've never actually given anyone that recipe ever, but I did put it in the book this time when I released it, because I was like, this seems like the appropriate time to sort of reveal this recipe. And it's not your standard flourless chocolate cake, but it is flourless. And I think there's just something about it. It's really decadent. It's delicious. It's sweet. And it's like classy, classic, elegant, like all of the above. So I think for a celebration, it's I would say it's sweet. Or if you're not into chocolate, the salted upside down banana cake is a great way to celebrate something as well. But you always have something sweet for a celebration. I feel like that's, if you like both savory and sweet, then that's the way to go.
That's the way to go. Yeah, for sure. That's really great. It's been actually super fun. Now I want to see if there's any questions from our audience. All right. So, hey, Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us today. What is the most important thing to consider when creating a new recipe?
I think the first and foremost, most important thing to consider when creating a recipe is really ultimately, is this user friendly? I mean, aside from, is this going to be delicious? I mean, I think that's kind of a given. When it comes time to being user friendly, like recipe, it's really just about can an everyday non-cook understand these words? And I always have my husband test them, because he's literally like your non-cook to a T. So if he can do it, then anyone else can do it. And so it's really just about being user friendly and having a consistent, dependable result every single time.
Yeah, making it accessible for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, one last question. Two questions, actually. So what was the most challenging part of writing the book? And what was the most rewarding part of writing the book?
That's a good question. I think in general, to answer the question, in general, the whole entire bookmaking process was absolutely amazing. Like, I got to be in my own little creative world. Me and my husband actually shot the entire book together, just me and him. And so that was really cool. And I had the best editor and the best publishing team. But I would say the most challenging part of making the book is dwindling down the recipes and kind of doing the recipe testing, because mainly I'm OCD and my kitchen is like spick and span. But during that, like however many months, like 6-month process of making the recipes, my kitchen it looked like it exploded from the inside out. It was so messy. And I just like every day I woke up like, I need to get these recipes done so I can clean up my kitchen. And the most rewarding part of the book is just seeing the final product, because, it goes from a concept to a bunch of papers and a bunch of words and a bunch of recipes and a bunch of pictures. It's just like a big messy thing. And then it all comes together into a really beautiful, gorgeous book that's pretty much immortal. Like, this book is going to last till the end of time. And it's kind of a cool branch of your legacy to have like an actual cookbook. Because my sister always reminds me, she's like, there's a lot of cookbooks out there, like I always say, but she's like, but not everyone gets to have a cookbook, and you should really be proud of that. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, it's just hard. Sometimes it's hard because you put so much work into it, and everyone else sees sort of the end result, and no one really sees how much work goes into it. So sometimes you lose track of how cool something is or how cool a project is, until someone else tells you that, hey, like that's a really cool thing. You should be really proud of it. And so that's probably the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah, I mean, wrapping out, Ronnie, I would say us and the community is really proud of you.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
your time, and it was really fun getting to know you, having some fun with the book. Tell us what's next for you, and where can we find your book?
Well, the book is available everywhere. I'm like, wait, should I have one too? It's so weird. The book is available anywhere books are sold. So you can, the easiest one is Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And then what's next? Honestly, I'm trying this new thing where I'm trying to stay present. There's always something next, right? And that's a question I get a lot. And aside from always learning in the industry or any job that you like hold things near and dear until it's time to release them, I think ultimately I have a lot of things in the works, but for me, I'm trying to focus on being present with like the current project and being proud of it. And I'm genuinely just trying to like, hey, I need to just just like enjoy the era of Did You Eat Yet? Enjoy where I am right now. And then give myself a break and then sort of like go hard again for the next project. So I know that I'm not sure if that's a satisfying answer to your question, but that's what I'm trying. And I think it's a good lesson for people to do, because we're always looking ahead, but how about sort of just looking at what's in front of us right now and
I love
enjoying
that about like getting all this great life lessons from you today, beyond all the inspiration that makes it easy for all of us to cook at home, but also just to be who we are, being proud of who we are. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important. I mean, given that Pride Month is this last month and Pride is next month, I think we have a lot to be, I think we have a lot to be thankful for, and sort of the layers and the struggles and the different things that were presented in our lives, I think is what makes us complex and layered individuals. And instead of seeing that as a burden or seeing that as like a struggle necessarily. And listen, we can't change who we are. So you might as well just spin it and find the silver lining. And ultimately the silver lining is that we're really interesting human beings and we're really fucking awesome. So to remind yourself of that is really important, especially at a time like this where there's so much going on and so many people trying to like take down everyone. I'm like, you guys, come on, like there are way more important things than trying to take down, happy, people living their authentic lives. And that's just where I stand.
yeah, that's a great note for us to end today's session. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you all at the next Talks at Google event.
Thanks so much, Boone.